Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Micro, small and medium enterprises remain the backbone of halal industries across many member countries. Yet they face increasing pressures to adopt sustainable practices, improve competitiveness, and integrate into regional and global value chains. This session will explore practical approaches for empowering halal micro, small, and medium enterprises through sustainability integration, green financing, ecosystem partnerships, and capacity development. Moderating this session is Mr. Anar Yusufzadeh, Director of the Public-Private Partnership Development Center, Konya, Azerbaijan. Please welcome. Joining him on stage, please welcome Mr. Selim Güven, General Country Manager, Aqua Azerbaijan and Turkey. Mr. Murat Bapayev, Deputy Chairman of the Management Board, Damu Fund, Kazakhstan. Mr. Elnur Aliyev, Advisor to the Chairman of the Management Board, Konya. Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadija, Deputy Chief of Staff to the President of Nigeria, Office of the Vice President. Yes, surely. Dear colleagues, the floor is yours.
Dear audience, distinguished guests, welcome all to our panel, Halal MSMEs and Sustainability, Green Transition, Halal Value Chains and Inclusive Growth. We know that Azerbaijan was hosting many of the international events, and one of the international events that we had was COP29. And as a result of this COP29, of course, we had an initiative by Konya, which is Baku Joint Declaration on SMEs Green Transition. So we will be discussing this in the light of that. And of course, we have our panelists, distinguished panelists who are representing alternative energy, the government sector. And the questions, I would like to start with Mr. Selim Güven. And the first question will be, as Aqua is one of the largest investors in renewable energy and water infrastructure in the region. From your perspective, how can large-scale infrastructure projects contribute to the development of SMEs and support a more inclusive green transition? I think this works. Yeah, it does. It should.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers and Konya for inviting Aqua and myself to this event and to the panel. Thank you for the question. And before I, get into details, you said, large-scale investment. I would briefly explain what Aqua does. Aqua is a energy transition company and water desalination company. We are at the core of the energy transition. And we define ourselves as a business to human. What we do is we generate power, which is one of the essentials today, considering the decarbonization and electrification, clean energy, and in between the transition, flexible technologies that generate electricity. And also, we are the biggest private water desalination company. We produce water. That's another essential part of human life. And by nature, these are two essential, and our business model. The way we do business reflects also this business to human aspect. Aqua Power is about 110 projects. We develop around 15 different countries, mostly in the developing world, in the Gulf region, Northern Africa and South Africa, Caucasia, Central Asia, and East Asia. Those are the countries and the region that we focus to develop projects that provide those essential needs of the human today in this world to support human economic life and the industries, and hopefully our model supports the ecosystem that supports these initiatives. Obviously, we are a large company. We develop large projects that requires different needs, but long-term economic transformation requires more than that. It requires other stakeholders. Before I get into that one, I have to also highlight that the nature of our business is we are not a construction company. We are developer. We go and develop a project where it requires the need for the investment, and then we develop the project, including the financing, with our project partners, the partners, equity, as well as the technology providers, and we operate. After we have it constructed, we operate. We are not a construction company. Our contracts usually last 20 to 30 years. So, as you can imagine, this is not a 20 to 30 or 36 months a construction project. You go, you develop, and leave. This is only the beginning. And then we are there as in the host country. First we call it host, but then we actually assume ourselves a part of this community. Because as you might imagine, a 30-year relationship is not that easy, and you cannot, you always have to think about this sustainable relationship. It's not a transaction. You can fool once, then what are you going to do the next? So that philosophy is by nature, and it's also adopted by our corporate culture, relies on that. And obviously, we deal with different stakeholders. Those are complex projects from 400 million to $1 billion project. Risky projects includes technology, includes financing, include operation, sometimes also handing over at the end of the 20 to 30 years. You need to have the lenders, you need the new technologies, and making sure that they all come together and constructed as planned and operate as planned with the performance guarantees that we provide to the government or the local community. So when you look at these projects, those projects requires a different engagement and different planning. Sometimes such projects only takes 3 to 5 years to develop, and another, after signing, another 3 to 4 years to construct, plus, as mentioned, 20 to 30 years. So it's a lifetime. When we do plan these projects, considering all these criteria, maybe I explained a little bit long, but you have to take all the local communities, other stakeholders, and community that host us, and put together a long-term plan. And this is beyond our capacity. We are just, I can say that we provide the platform, but thereafter we need the SMEs, small to medium enterprises, because as discussed here, no need to say that they are the backbone of the economic activity, have a critical role in the innovation, job creation, and economic diversification. Maybe we will discuss in the following round about our programs into details, how we engage, but again, this requires a broad system of suppliers, contractors, service suppliers, and the specialists. And as mentioned during the footprint, we sometimes go into regions where we are the first mover. And not only in the technology, but in that kind of large scale. Just to give an example, in Azerbaijan, I forgot to mention the projects we have. We have built the first large scale in Azerbaijan and in the Caucasian region of a wind power plant, 240 megawatt. This was by technology. Maybe there were some smaller scale, but that scale and that technology was the first project. And then now we also honored to be awarded for a desalination project in Azerbaijan to develop and operate and then hand over water desalination project in Caspian Sea. When you look at them, the first one is one of the pilot projects to test the renewable energy program under the instruction of President Ilham Aliyev. We are proud to successfully develop. It took a little bit longer because of the nature of this, and we have had to overcome a lot of different events along the route. And now we are in the pre-construction phase of our Caspian desalination project. That total dose project is close to $750 million. And only in the first project, which we successfully completed at the end of last year and now operating and serving the Azerbaijani grid, purely renewable energy, wind energy. We were on time and on budget. We inaugurated that project back in January where the president also honored the inauguration of our project. In these projects, yes, we bring new technology. Sometimes we don't have the skills, we don't have the suppliers, but these footprint of the plan that we look at this business to human approach, we work with the local communities. And also, during our negotiations, we commit sometimes hard commitments, sometimes best effort basis, localization. Localization, I'm proud to say that I am also responsible for Turkey. In Turkey, we develop a power plant. Now, currently, 100% of the operations, administration and operations are Turkish locals. Currently, in the wind project, I can say that 90% achieved. We are still new. We are building the capacity of a local force to develop and operate this project wholly by the local force. In the meantime, is 24 to 26 months, we, for the first time, work with the local constructing service contractors, service providers, the specialists, engineering firms, and introduce and new approaches management. So this is the part of the enabler, the SMEs. But maybe, I don't know the timing-wise.
Yeah. We'll have chance for more questions.
One thing I could say that this is, as mentioned, we are a 30-year project. SMEs, sometimes we have to build projects, have to look at in a long term as well. And we are happy to work with them because the recent incidents around the world, we have seen so many times in the COVID, in the European Ukraine, and in this recent incident in Iran, we have seen that supply chains are fragile. Exactly. And you have to locally source your components. They are faster, cheaper, and based on a long-term relation. And SMEs needs to look at not only a construction project. We are here for the next 20 to 30 years. Sometimes we are happy and more than willing to work on a plan how they build. Maybe the first time, but they have to also link and think long-term. and develop a longer-term capacity building and business opportunities for all the stakeholders. And finally, the pipeline. We are here. This is a one project, but government also has to provide this platform to show the visibility and predictability, both the investors and the ecosystem, that they have to invest their innovation, workforce, capacity building to have a sustainable, fair, and just halal development for all the communities that we serve. It's not like one community or one section, but it should be distributed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salim. Just to summarize what you say, I believe the main line that we should remember is that you are human to business, or rather business to human, and that you are in 110 projects in 15 countries, and the relationship that you are building is always long-term. It's 20 to 30 years. Not many marriages last that long. So that's why we believe that, that's very important that you are in Azerbaijan now and in the region, wider region.
Just to add one thing I forgot to mention, and in that relationship, the platforms that the government agencies provide, for example, COBIA's initiative in the joint declaration of the Baku Climate Coalition for the green transition of the SMEs are important, and we are actually benefit from that program as Aqua, as the business, and also we hope that the local business also benefit from that. That is also, in addition to the points that I raised, is very important because you need COBIA-like institutions to prepare that platform and guide the investor, because we might not know everything when we enter a new country. That's very crucial that I have to underline.
Thank you for mentioning us, and of course, we need each other. Thank you for the thoughts, and now I would like to come to our next speaker, Mr. Bapayev from Damu Fund in Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan has recently launched a large-scale guarantee mechanism for SMEs. How do these guarantee schemes help SMEs to gain access to financing and support their participation in sustainable and halal value chains?
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. First of all, assalamu alaikum, dear participants of the forum. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the government of Azerbaijan Republic. Second, of our main partnership partner is COBIA and the Islamic Bank Development Group for inviting on this significant event. Yes, of course, in 2025, under direction of Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, was established a two guarantee fund on framework on Damu Fund, because Damu Fund has good experiences in this kind of tools. Yes, for example, guarantee fund number one, we supported approximately 4,000 projects on the loans, 1.45 billion US dollar. This guarantee loans is approximately $780 million USA. The second guarantee fund number two, we supported main for our Republic 11 projects on the sum 1.2 billion US dollars. This loan part, guarantee loan part is 240 million USD dollar. Yes, of course, this guarantee fund give a good opportunity for entrepreneurs to get loans from the banks and maybe expand his business. If you take in the halal business, for example, on the 1st of June 2026, we supported approximately 1,000 projects on the loan credit sum is 380 million US dollars. Yes, of course, halal product for Kazakhstan is a main key opportunity to develop economics If we compare before we work without Islamic tools, instruments, it not was so popular. But we have a good partnership in Kazakhstan, Islamic bank. We discussed and decided to work in the portfolio guarantee. We supported on the approximately 2,000 projects on the sum $20 million US. Now we have a negotiation with ICD Bank. If you know, is a part of group Islamic Bank. Now ICD wants to funding the local in Kazakhstan leasing companies, but we supported by give guarantee. It will be a good opportunity for our entrepreneurs to access a long-term and a cheap investments, for example. Yes, of course, for example, Islamic halal product, it's not just only the certificate production. Islamic halal products now gives a good impulse, for example, for agriculture, food services and logistic service in the Kazakhstan. That's why, of course, we open and ready to support halal and Islamic instruments in Kazakhstan. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babayev. From what I have grasped, you are basically providing guarantees, and your partnership with ISDB or Islamic Development Bank and ICD basically gives opportunity to the businesses that are less bankable to be financed through the leasing companies, and you're providing the guarantees for that. So that's a very good initiative, and that's very good that we're mentioning it at this event. And I would like to move to our next speaker, Mr. Elnur Aliyev, and there are many initiatives related to green which are headed by Mr. Elnur, and one of them was, of course, when we had the first Azhab Forum in Azerbaijan. It was the theme whether the green is the new halal. All right, and but the question today I would like to address to you is related to the COP29. The event that we had in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan hosted COP29 and joint declaration on Baku Climate Coalition for SMEs, Green Transition was adopted. Can you tell us more on how the idea came about and what were the steps taken? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, Assalamu alaikum to all guests of our Baku, Azerbaijan, and definitely of our forum. So COP29 was a very important event, not just for a global climate process, but even for SMEs in Azerbaijan. Having assumed the chairmanship COP29, and as a part of the government, we as a COBIA, and the COBIA stands for the State Agency for SMEs Development, we have launched a survey to better understand SMEs in Azerbaijan from lenses of the green transition. And for those of you, maybe you have a little bit of exposure to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is a quite diversified country in terms of the geographical landscape and the climatic zones. So when you talk to the SMEs Azerbaijan, you talk to SMEs on the mountains, you talk to the SMEs in the dry, arid areas, you talk to the SMEs in the subtropical region of Azerbaijan. So it's a quite diversified range of the businesses. And that's why the problem of, let's say, overall, generally problem of the SMEs in Azerbaijan is not the issue of the one specific sector, but basically all sectors, at least in the agricultural industry. So that was very insightful exercise. We have conducted 6-month survey, and because of the very nice infrastructure that we have in the agency, we have a lot of what we call SME ambassadors, which are dispersed across all Azerbaijan, and they're acting, in fact, as a liaison office between the local governor and the SME community in the specific region. So we have managed to collect very interesting data. Again, and this data is interesting because not because they're representing SME in general, but they're also representing the different industries. And specifically for us in Azerbaijan, many SMEs are engaged in the farming industry, in agriculture in general. So there are three major conclusions that we have made out of our survey looking across all industries. First of all, definitely the major challenge, and that is the survey conducted, again, I am repeating myself, to explain to us in the first place what are the challenges faced by SMEs in their green transition. So the first general challenge that we have observed across all industries is definitely awareness. For many SMEs, when you talk about the green transition, this is a very awkward notion. I mean, most of them, they were hearing that maybe from us in the first time in their life. So across all industries, people don't understand what is the green transition. And meanwhile, generally accepted term that we have to facilitate SMEs green transition. So definitely, this is the biggest challenge, awareness, lack of awareness, understanding. I mean, even the second challenge that we have identified, even those of them which understand that the green transition is important, this is beneficial for them, they simply lack capacities and capability to deal with the issue. And the biggest lack of capacity is the expert capacity, HR capacity. And then, one of the questions that we were posing to our SMEs in order to understand them better, do they have access to climate financing? And definitely, when you talk to SME about climate financing, the most important part of the phrase will be financing itself. Most of them have issues with the conventional financing. So we have identified those three, I would say, greatest challenges, at least for SMEs in Azerbaijan. But because we have been chairing COP29, we also looked at the international track record. What has been done for SMEs at the global scale? Definitely since it is COP29, naturally we looked back to previous COPs. COP28 COPs, but definitely most important was like 10-15, the recent 10-15. And then we have realized very interesting stuff that there is a definite discussion of the role of the private sector in green transition. There is definitely a discussion how governments can facilitate the green transition of the private sector. But then when you dig a bit deeper, you see that the private sector normally means large firms and the corporations. SMEs were not part of the big picture, at least in terms of the global scale. There, here and there, at different COPs, there was regional approach for SMEs, but what we have observed, there hasn't been proper global approach trying to find a solution for SMEs in general. And then we have also, we are starting to talking to our international partners like Asian Development Bank, International Trade Center, to our Brazilian partners, because they have been part of they were supposed to assume COP23 at that time. So we have realized that the major issue why SMEs were not part of the problem in the climate discussions are simple. Because if you look at the climate discussions that has been conducted so far, the question is where to take money from. But when it comes to SMEs, the first question is how to finance. So issue is there is a clear lack of the infrastructure, even if there is a funding, how we can stream them to the SMEs, how we can channel them to the SMEs' needs. So that's the biggest question. And that's what apparently, maybe not deliberately, but apparently that was the reason that SMEs hasn't been part of the permanent agenda item, the climate discussion. So having that picture from one side, we understand that this is the challenges, and that is and the key question is how to finance. We came maybe to the very important conclusion that in order to help SMEs, and I have to remind, so the SME, COBIA is a specialized SME agency. We're dealing with SMEs on a daily basis and only with SMEs. Also, we're a specialized SME agency. We are not enough for SMEs. And the reason lies in the role of the SMEs within their ecosystem. So each company, regardless of the size, they're operating within a given ecosystem. Ecosystem implies all stakeholders, government, non-government, NGOs, banks, regulatory authorities. So the fundamental difference between SMEs and the large corporations that in many instances, SMEs are normally marginal within the ecosystem they're operating. Meanwhile, the companies, specifically large corporations, they are shaping themselves their ecosystem. So and the next conclusion from this, if we are serious about helping SMEs in their green transition, we have to apply ecosystem approach. And the ecosystem approach we have translated in a diplomatic terms to the phrase of coalition. And that's why the whole idea of the launching global coalition for SMEs green transition came from. And we have drafted a declaration reflecting these three challenges. As I said, awareness, capacity, capability, and access to the trade financing. And we call this Baku Coalition for SMEs Green Transition. And the coalition here has very important two dimensions. Normally, when you talk about international agreement, you call it coalition. It is definitely implied coalition at international scale. But for us, coalition, and maybe most importantly, means coalition at national level. So if we don't come together to help SMEs at national level and feel that this is important for all stakeholders within the ecosystem, this change will not happen. So we have launched this declaration based on our survey, mostly on our survey. We have launched this exactly on the November 13 or 14 back in 2024. And we have managed to launch it with a very important partners at the same day. That was SME Agency for Brasilia, that was ITC, and the COBIA. And then later on, we have invited our partners with whom we have been working on the SMEs and the environmental protection topics. And in this regard, we have invited the organization of the Selim Bey, and they have kindly agreed. So far, we have around 30 international partners that joined our coalition. And maybe for the reference for more detailed information, we have developed a specialized website, greensme.org, and the fact that that domain was available basically implied that nobody was seriously thinking about the green SMEs. So the information is available there. This is the historical background of how we come to this idea, how we have started to realize this idea, and I hope that so I say we have signed MOU with Asian Development Bank on implementation of the declaration itself, and I hope that this annual meeting will be very also conducive in extending our partnership map to the ISDB group, because we believe that if we talk about SMEs green transition and halal industry and intercrossing, and as you have mentioned earlier, in one of the previous ASHAB meetings, we have introduced the concept of the green and halal. And maybe I will give a very, very short reference to this. And we were trying to understand what is the green movement and what is the better understanding of halal. So apparently the biggest difference between the modern green movement and our perception of halal is green and the climate process is mostly reactive. So we talk about the environment because we are damaging the environment and believe it will damage our lives. But from the Islamic perspective or halal perspective, this approach is proactive. That means you have to safeguard the environment. You have to, in other words, you have to protect the rights of the environment regardless of the damage we're inflicting on it. So I will stop here, Mr. Anar, and I will...
Thank you very much for an extensive explanation on how it all started. I would like to just to summarize that first of all, what was important was to get the data collection that was done by us, by the COBIA, since I am also representing COBIA. And later on, we have found out that there are 3 lacking points. One is awareness, the capacity building, and access to finance. And what is, of course, very important for the success of this coalition is the partners. And I would like to commend one of the panelists here as well. Aqua Power is also a signatory to that joint declaration. And of course, by being here, it strengthened the point that we have it locally first. Because by building a strong local base, then we can go, of course, on an international level. And now I would like to invite our next speaker, Senator Ibrahim. And our question will be, in many countries are exploring the intersection between sustainability and the halal economy. How can national halal strategies be designed to promote sustainable value chains while remaining commercially competitive. So basically, we can say that even in continuation of the point that we have touched.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I think I'd like to start with where Mr. Aliyev finished, which is to say, from the green or sustainable perspective, it's a reactive engagement, while from the halal perspective, it's proactive. So I think halal is no longer a niche, a part of any economy. I mean, it's global, it's growing in size, it's targeted to hit 7 trillion. So the impact of that alone, I think is enough to attract the kind of attention that has traditionally been focused on the green, or sustainable economy. Both of them are aligned. I mean, from the halal perspective, or the sustainable perspective, you are talking about ethics, you're talking about sustainability, and you're talking about responsible production. These are all, issues that are embedded in any halal economy. I think the beauty about the halal perspective is that it is all-encompassing. I mean, if you're talking about traceability, you have to start from the very beginning and then move up to ensure that in all parts of the value chain, from the production to the processing to logistics, we have all those sustainability, portions embedded at the very beginning. So there's a very, very thin line, between sustainable, or green economy and the halal perspective. I think the differential is that the halal economy was purely started off or seen from a religious perspective. That is no longer the case. I mean, Nigeria is a very good example of that. It's a secular country, Muslims, Christians, and we're already, I think, probably the second largest halal consumer economy in Africa, and maybe the 7th in the world. And what will interest you to find is that most of the impact, there's very, very little differentiation between the consumers on religious perspective. We have a significant fintech sector, a very robust banking sector. And over time, we have seen Islamic banking slowly moving and taking up market share. We're looking at almost 17 to 20% of the market share at this point in time. And most of the pending banking licenses with the central bank are all for Islamic banks. And you're finding that even the conventional banks are open Islamic windows so that they could take a fast track to whatever. And the interesting thing is that from the ownership to the patronage, it's almost a mix of Muslim and Christian. In fact, I think just reading recently that the largest loan portfolio to a state by the Islamic Development Bank is actually going to a state in the southeastern part of the country, which is almost predominantly Christian. So yes, there's a very fine line which has been almost blurred now. Like I said, nobody talks about religion. People actually interchange, with halal products and sustainable or ethnically clean products at the same time. And I think it's a very, very good development for the expanding halal economy globally.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, Senator. And I would like to take the line again from what you have said, that halal is actually a niche business, but it's a niche business that is all-encompassive. So basically, it includes so many different fields. And when we're talking about halal, yeah, it seems that we're talking about something which is niche, which is small, but looking at the scale, looking at how big it is, I mean, of course, it encompasses it all. Thank you very much. And now I would like to continue with the question to Mr. Salim Güven. So the second question I have for you is, the green transition is often discussed in terms of large investments and major infrastructure projects, so basically what Aqua Power is doing. But how can the companies ensure that the benefits of this transition are shared more broadly across local communities and SMEs contributing to inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
Thank you. That's true that, we also proud ourselves and name ourselves as the green transition company and leader in the region. But beyond that, obviously, this trickling down to other parts of the economy, ecosystem requires more than that. And at one aspect, we say that we are business to human. We provide essentials to have a healthy, prosperous community in health, clean water, and affordable and clean power to have a halal and sustainable and continuous needs of the human, both from the basic needs and also support the economy. A competitive, affordable power supports all the stakeholders in the economic system and also make them competitive or not disadvantages in the supply chain when they go beyond the borders. However, as you rightly say, I can speak of our approach, what we do, we are, first of all, need to build sustainable business, repetitive. As mentioned earlier, transaction is one time. It happens a trade. But when it becomes a system and continuous, that benefits and builds the capacity in a long-term outlook. And this goes beyond the economic sustainability, but needs to include also social and economic sustainability. So that's one of the first criteria. We look at any program or any sustainable halal approach or trickle that benefit to the community. We look first of all how widespread and how it is going to continue on. It's like we have that in our culture, waqf. Waqf continues for centuries almost. So I am not going to go that far, but what I'm trying to say is not a transaction. It should, after a while, we give the kicker, and then how it will continue on, like teaching a trades into a region or supporting in terms of rooftop solar panels of a producer who actually produce something perishable that needs to be refrigerated, but sometimes off-grid. So another criteria is inclusiveness. We obviously do surveys, we go to the community and obviously discuss with COBIA. Are we affecting with the effectiveness of your investment return is inclusive, widespread, or only benefits a niche? So that's another criteria that we look at it. And obviously, every community, every country, or every aspects of economy needs different needs. Sometimes you have to tailor-made. It could be tailor-made that need. Sometimes that investment, time or money, or the budget, you have to look at where it makes the most return. Not economic always, but as mentioned, social and economic and environmental. Is it infrastructure? Sometimes you just bring water and then you support a longer or more higher yield of crops in the farming. Or sometimes you put that social benefits to the education, underprivileged, or of a specific community, or sometimes wider. Or it could be general education or technical education, which also we benefit because we upskill and then we also provide that skill to the other supply chain. And those are the criteria. We look at it, and obviously I took a lot of notes. I'll come down to highlight what Elnur Muellim said. We need platforms. That's where COBIA plays an important role, where they know the basic needs. That criteria that I mentioned is already in the database created, is ready, well made ready, and we become a part of that ecosystem and coalition. That is very time consuming, and also we work with this, government side and bring other stakeholders like our stakeholders, lenders, very much our lenders. We work with like Islamic Development Bank, but we also have similar mission finance institutions. They are very much support this. And we are able to mobilize or even have them approve our budget for these specific projects when we work with COBIA, like platforms and ecosystem. And maybe over here I can mention that finance aspect that is mentioned is important. Again, I implicitly mentioned that return on investment. This is a different type of return, obviously, it's clear. And SMEs. SMEs here, the biggest enabler. They employ the 95% of the workforce. They are flexible, innovative, and diversified. They're in each country, they have unique, might be problems, challenges, or obstacle, I better phrase like that. And again, in this coalition and ecosystem, we identify where that specific need should be addressed, and we put our resources, effort, know-how sometimes, or our network into this kickstart, and hoping that it's going to be a long-term and ongoing, repetitive, not a transaction.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. We're having a very interesting discussion. I mean, when we are bringing different topics that seem not to be related to halal, but when we have clean water, this clean energy, and all these things are actually, like this is the theme that we have had in Azab, and like what the green is the new halal. Really, like when we are mixing these two topics and when we are actually comparing them, we see how much they are related. Seemingly unrelated, but they are very much related. So that's why, thank you very much for your thoughts. And the next question goes to Mr. Babayev again. We will talk a little about Islamic finance, and because we have discussed many things basically related to finance, we say that all the SMEs, they need access to finance. And when we are talking, and Mr. Salim mentioned very good thing. He said that we are talking about return on investment, but this return on investment may not be financial all the time, all right? But we still need finance in order to reap the benefits of the future, like the green initiatives. So the question is, Islamic finance is getting increasing importance across ISDB member countries. So could you share with us what is Kazakhstan's experience in supporting SMEs through Islamic finance instruments, and your vision for your future cooperation with institutions such as ICD?
Yes, can I repeat about the ICD? ICD is our, now we have the good relationship with ICD. Tomorrow we are going to sign the MOU with ICD. Yes, of course, halal sectors now in Kazakhstan growing very rapidly. It's a good opportunity for all our Islamic entrepreneurs. A lot of Islamic entrepreneurs in Kazakhstan don't want to take the loans in the common loans. That's why Islamic tools, instruments in Kazakhstan with government support, blending, for example, at another, give guarantee, we can blending money. It's a good opportunity for halal sector in Kazakhstan, for example. Yes, of course, to help us for cooperation with our main partnership. For example, it's a COBE, COSGAP, CODID, SME Bank of Malaysia. Of course, first of all, they give your experience for us. The all tools, for example, government supporting tools, how this work in such countries. Yes, of course, in future, now we observed that the Islamic and the halal sector is growing rapidly. For example, I said before, in agricultural food sectors, and we want to expand our and export our product in other Islamic countries. For example, a lot of meat in Kazakhstan we send to, for example, a lot of Islamic countries because they have some requirements about halal product. Yes, of course, this kind of platform, for example, as Hub Forum, Halal Forum, is a good opportunity for us in this platform. Even we can find another good partnership in future. We can experience this. Maybe as we can refund funding from the Islamic countries for cheaper for our entrepreneurs. It's a main key for example, in Kazakhstan, because we have maybe not suitable for our entrepreneurs rates. Yes, of course, at the end of my speech, I would like to all participants forum the good work and maybe interesting discussions and maybe find the new projects in this platform. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we also thank you, of course. And like you said, support of the government is always very important because government should be and is the enabler, especially for the SMEs who are lacking some resources. We are very short of time, but I would like to continue with Senator first, if possible. So the question is, what practical measures can governments take to enable MSMEs to participate effectively in halal value chains and access regional and global markets?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to get the private sector involved directly instead of government attempting to set up an ecosystem from the ground up. In Nigeria, like I told you, we already have a very, very robust Islamic banking ecosystem, and we also have a significant market share of halal products that are being consumed. And so there's been a lot of private sector interest in developing that strategy, and what they did was to approach government to say, we need help. We need help with certification. We need help with the ecosystem. Based on that, we set up an implementation. First of all, we set up an implementation policy committee, and we got a lot of technical assistance from Badia, financial assistance. And this is chaired by no less a person than the Vice President. So it involves all the key ministries, it involves the private sector drivers, and it involves the chambers of commerce. So it's essentially private sector driven. And what we did was to approach it from 4 pillars, which is halal compliance, market access, certification, and of course, infrastructure. So government has to come in with these policies. Like I said, listening and being driven by input from the private sector who have already been struggling in essence to meet compliance and so on and so forth. And that's what's happening at the moment. Like I said, get the ministries involved, work on from the ground up, develop the ecosystem completely, as opposed to just leaving the private sector to struggle to do that on their own. And then, of course, since you are starting essentially on a clean slate, you get a lot of input from global best practice managers like Malaysia, like Turkey, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, so that you essentially engage on the technical perspective to get the best and the most current ecosystem practice in place in the country.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Mr. El Noor, we have already discussed Azhab a little bit, but I would also like to come back to the topic. And what was the idea of Azhab and how did it come about? So can you tell us more about that?
So ASAP definitely is a strategic project of ours. And the major philosophy behind ASAP was to introduce, or maybe to reintroduce, I would say, the proper understanding of the very notion of halal. Because tendency, and we have attended a lot of halal forums, but the tendency is and what we have seen, that there is a general tendency to consider halal only in terms of the physical material consumption. So people are, and what with the way we see it, people are narrowing the notion of halal to the size of the mouse. That means that is the general perception, and that is very unfortunate, because we are not consuming 24 hours, even from that perspective. So we are consuming maybe not more than 1 hour a day. But very important part of the day, we are in relationship. We are in relationship at the office, at workplace, in the market, all type of relationship. And what we're trying to explain and to spread even, that the halal starts, and maybe is the most important part of the halal, relates to the sort of relationship you are establishing. And this is, I would say, that's the most important differentiating feature of our ASHAB Forum. And that's why we are focusing on management issues. That's why we are focusing on a halal and introducing halal business model as a concept. Because halal business model definitely is also about products, financing, but definitely it's much more about relationship. It's much, and if you look at the halal business model, your stakeholder number will be much bigger if you look at the, for example, normal business model. And I believe if we try to focus and correct our personal or sometimes collective behavior in lining it with halal, then definitely products that we are consuming from time to time, they will tend to also be halal. Because the issue with the halal industry, that the more we are discussing the standardization, the more we are discussing different technical parameters of it, where from our perspective, we are lowering down the proper understanding of halal. It becomes a very technical matter. That's why, for example, one of the initiatives you have mentioned earlier is green and halal. And in fact, the answer to the question is green a new halal? No, we just forgot what is halal. And we were prescribed, so if from the, and then important basically, important understanding of halal comes with understanding of what we call rights. That means haq. So unfortunately, halal is somehow, the general trend is disrupted from the core notion of the rights. And sometimes halal is perceived only for Muslims. Meanwhile, it's not just for Muslims. From our perspective, everybody has rights. And definitely, from Islamic perspective, all human beings have rights. They have rights to be respected, they have rights to be for justice. And importantly, when it comes to the green, environment has a right. And again, has a proactive right. So we have to protect. And we have a notion of israf, which is much more advanced than the notion of green. I mean, if we prevent israf, we don't arrive at understanding that now we have to protect. We have to protect because it's given, not because it's polluted, not because it's threatening our lives, not because it's threatening future generations, which is common terminology for global climate process. And that is what we're trying to develop as a ASHAB Forum. And that's why if you look at the panels that has been so far organized by us, very few of them are of technical nature. And that's what we're trying to promote under the ASHAB platform. Thank you very much.
I will summarize, and then we will give the chance to the floor to ask the questions. So, according to Mr. Ilnur, halal, and not only actually according to Mr. Ilnur, according to many of our speakers at our panel, halal is much bigger than what we think of it. And unfortunately, we are just, jotting it down to standards, to technical issues. but rather it is much bigger. And the notion is that we are not talking about it, and we are not looking at it from the perspective of rights. But when we look at it from the perspective of rights, of course, we understand that the topic is much wider, much bigger, and is to be much more discussed. So now I would like to invite questions from the floor. If anybody from the public would like to ask a question to our panelists, please present yourself and then tell us which panelist you would like to answer your question. Do we have any questions? Yeah. Can somebody approach with the microphone? Technical team? Do we have mics? If not, it's okay. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, moderator and panelists. My name is Edu Oluwatoyin Ahmed. I am the Executive Director in charge of micro, small, and medium enterprises at the Bank of Industry in Nigeria. My question goes to Mr. Murat Bapayev. You said in your opening remarks the fact that the fund had about $650 million investment into the halal economy in Kazakhstan, right? So the question for you is, how long, I see you guys are doing really good in terms of the halal economy and the product itself. So how long has it taken Kazakhstan to come this far and, you know, for you to be able to provide these beautiful stories you have said? And what would your suggestion or what you can share to a country looking to embark on this kind of program, particularly for a country like Nigeria, which is just at the verge of implementing its own halal strategy? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question about the time in implementing Islamic tools in Kazakhstan. We began it approximately 5 years ago. It takes approximately 5 years. We changed all these requirements for Islamic banks in our regulation authority. That's why I think it's not problem to implement for in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan live a lot of Islam guys. It's not will be problem. Our authority regulators, of course, supports all these instruments and tools. That's why it's not difficult for us. Yes, of course, a lot of entrepreneurs has habits to work the old our system, the same rate to give the second-tier banks. I think in future we can go in future very rapidly. It's not problem in Kazakhstan to increase the share of Islamic loans. Okay, I answered on your question? Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the floor? Yeah, please.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Zakari Aliu Amadou. I'm a CEO of an asset management company, BAS Financial Services, from Nigeria also. So my question is from a capital market operator. I hear that you have funds, you have a robust halal economy. We're about to start officially as a country the halal economy project. From an operator, we finance MSMEs, we finance different sectors of operators in the market. My question is, how do you make cost of finance very low? Because that is one of the major problems I have financing companies. Cost of finance is high, MPR is high, so you don't get as much impact as you would like. So how do you manage cost of financing to asset management or investment companies, and then for on lending also? Thank you.
Do you have anybody particular who are asking the question?
Anybody,
or
anybody
All right.
can take the question.
Mr. Anu would like to take the question?
Thank you very much. Basically, this is the core issue, cost of financing. As a state agency for the SME development, we are not directly engaged in the SME financing, but in Azerbaijan, we have an entrepreneurship development fund, and it is funded, and its owner of the fund is the government. So there is a subsidized financing for SMEs. With a grace period, with a low markups or interest rate, whatever you want to put it. I think the government could be the only source of the enabling cost of financing for SMEs, and that is what practiced in Azerbaijan. That's from our own experience. But at the same time, I think the cost of financing is not the only decisive factor in rendering SMEs successful in their business. And when also, if you look at the financing, we have to also differentiate between OPEX financing and the CAPEX financing. And for the most of SMEs, from our experience, the most challenging part is the CAPEX financing. And when we talk about the green transition, so we talk about the new technology, and the technology requires longer period for the CAPEX amortization. So those are the issues that we are also working at the moment. So, and that is the link where the way SME financing is linked to the green transition, and specific focus shall be on the technology and enable SME to amortize the cost of technology in a normal period of normal amortization period for that technology.
Anybody else from the panel would like to take the question? Mr.
I can comment on the principle, not on the SME, but the way the reduce the cost of capital of the projects in any project is based on a couple of fundamentals. Maybe I can contribute. First is to define the project carefully, that for the purpose. And each project has different stakeholders: government, lenders, insurance, investor, and shareholders. A good allocation of this risk, who better manages that risk, reduces the risk. If you reduce the risk, the cost of financing drops. So that's, again, going back to the coalition. And each party's good understanding of their mission and role. Government is sometimes the enabler, and who else can take better than risk? That's not the maybe any private entity's control. It's beyond its means, but the government sometimes assuming that and being able to manage within its network just drops 200, 300 basis points. That's one thing. And again, another point is a good knowledge of available financing. We know that even in our projects, there are concessional financing, very cheap, export credits available, or grants even for the, we know SMEs that are available that comes within the package. Sometimes you just need to have someone expert to support. Obviously, SMEs don't have that, that expertise. Institutions like Ministry of Economy and COBIA knows them and have the technical knowledge and provides that information and to the service of the SMEs.
And also, the thing that we are working at the moment, when you pull together small SMEs, so that their cumulative asset size will enable them to get reasonable cost of financing. This is very promising, specifically again in terms of the green transition. Because, for example, we are mostly looking at the agricultural sector. So I'm talking about putting the lands together and creating sort of cooperatives for financing, and specifically if it is the land in the same region. So definitely we are artificially creating economies of scale of individual SMEs, and that's another way of attracting the commercial financing to the SMEs. I don't know if you have this practice in Nigeria as well or not.
if I got the question right, I think he's actually from Nigeria. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, with the rise of non-interest financing in the country, you actually have now a government development bank, Bank of Industry, which is geared towards providing low-cost financing to industry, opening a non-interest window. And we have both the chairman of the bank and the head of the non-interest window here. So for MSMEs, that presents two things. The shared risk component, which is very, very important for small industries, and the lower cost of financing. So maybe before he leaves, he can actually strike up a conversation with the BOI officials here so that by the time he gets back home, he has a solution to his issue.
Yeah, so we are solving local problems at international event. All right, so I would like to thank all the panelists for your interesting thoughts, for the discussion that we have had. So with this, we commence our session, and thank you very much again.
Dear colleagues, we kindly ask you to remain on stage for group photo. And thank you for another engaging discussion. We'll now take a short coffee break and reconvene at approximately 3:35 p.m. for our ministerial session. See you soon. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, we kindly ask you to take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to one of the highlights of Health ASAP 2026. The ministerial session brings together senior government leaders and ISDB group representatives to discuss how the halal economy can serve as a catalyst for regional integration, trade connectivity, investment cooperation, and sustainable development. Immediately after the ministerial session, we also have the launch of the Global Islamic Economists Program, GIEP, which will take approximately 10 minutes, including the launch ceremony and official photograph. For this, may we kindly request our distinguished speakers to stay in the hall following the ministerial session to witness the GIEP launch session. Dear participants, to deliver the first ministerial intervention, it's our pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Majnun Mamadov, Minister of Agriculture of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Dear guests, Excellencies, valued investors, and business leaders, it's a distinct privilege to welcome you to Baku for the Halal Economy Leadership Forum. Today, we are not just discussing a market segment. We are presenting a high-growth, resilient asset class that's redefining global trade. The global halal ecosystem has evolved far beyond its traditional boundaries into a comprehensive, sustainable development model valued at over $2 trillion United States dollars. For forward-looking investors, this rapid expansion offers a historic opportunity to deploy capital into high-yield agricultural partnerships, accelerate technology transfer, and build cross-border